Good evening. We'll call to order the Thursday, October 14th, 2021 meeting of the Clive City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Cirksena.
Here.
Council members Klein.
Here.
Edwards.
Here.
McCoy.
Here.
Judkins.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
All present and accounted for. And look at this great group of attendees tonight. They didn't have anything else to do than come to a city council meeting. Welcome, everybody. If you'd be so kind to stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda. I'm not aware of any substantive changes. Go ahead.
Approval.
Moved by Eric, seconded by John. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thumbs up.
Agenda is approved. Thank you, Ted. Okay, now the moment that we've all been waiting for. We have a proclamation for Beggars Night. Let's sing up together. It's my pleasure to read the proclamation. Whereas each year the mayor is asked to proclaim Beggars Night as part of the annual observance of Halloween, and whereas a tradition has evolved in the greater Des Moines area that youngsters go trick-or-treating on the evening prior to Halloween, and whereas it is felt to be in the best interest of the community that Beggars Night be observed on the same date throughout the area, and whereas the city of Clive staff has surveyed communities in the metropolitan area and found that October 30th, 2021 was the preferred night for Beggars Night. Now therefore, I, Scott Cirksena, Mayor of the city of Clive, do hereby proclaim the evening of October 30th as Beggars Night in Clive, Iowa. I further request all residents of Clive to open their doors to children of the community between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. on that date, and to make the celebration of Beggars Night as safe and enjoyable as possible. Give me a pleasure to sign this this proclamation. Look, John, they're all like riveted in their seats.
They didn't burst out into applause.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
surprised.
Okay, now it's time for citizens presentation. This is a time where anyone in the audience can address the council on an item that is not on the agenda. Is there anybody here to do so, either physically or online, Pete?
Mayor, at this time, we only have staff that are online.
Okay, very good. Seeing none, we're going to move to our first item of presentation, and this is the Polk County and Land Legacy Bond Group. And Matt.
Thank you, Your Honor. We got a request from Polk County Conservation and the related campaign committee to do a presentation in front of the council regarding the land and legacy bond referendum that's coming up on the November 2nd election. We got Cammie Rankin and Ryan Crane here to provide an update to you and a little bit of a presentation and receive your feedback. So turn it over to them, Your Honor.
Yeah. Welcome to you both as we get technology up and running here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Nice to see you, Ryan.
Nice to see you too.
Clearly
yeah.
you're staying busy.
Yeah, trying to.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we are.
Look forward to hearing from you both.
Yeah, thank you much. So yeah, we are here to talk a little bit this evening about what is on the back of the ballot here in just a few weeks on Tuesday, November 2nd. That is the Polk County Water and Land Legacy. It is a bond, sorry, for $65 million for water quality, for river protection, wildlife preservation, flood mitigation, which we hope to emphasize tonight, recreation and trails. And our campaign team is a bipartisan group of volunteers from public, private, and nonprofit sectors. Shout out to Pat Bodie, who's joining us this evening in that regard, one of the co-chairs for outreach, along with a number of others. I think we cover that on the next slide, actually. And Polk County's mission through this bond is to support the needs for water, habitat, land, parks, and rec. Yep, I thought so. So there's Pat and myself, and then Tom Levis a legendary Polk County Conservation Board member and attorney in town, Mark Ackelson, and then of course Jerry Nugent and Chris Hensley, rounding out the bipartisan fundraising panel that we spoke about. So I think actually I'm going to pivot to Cami at this point. Cami Rankin, being a member of the team of Polk County Conservation, who will be speaking kind of to the weeds in a good way about what this bond would bring.
Right. Okay, so obviously the slide that's up in front of you, 5 reasons to support the bond referendum of the Polk County Water and Land Legacy, water quality stewardship, protection of the watershed around the Des Moines Raccoon Rivers, protect wildlife habitat, prevent flooding, and quality of life for all. And I'll get into some specific projects here in just a minute. So the bonds are issued for 20 years by the Board of Supervisors, and there's an audit, obviously, $11 per year is the average cost per household for the average homeowner in Polk County, approximately 91 cents per month. And the thing we experienced from the last bond is that we had about a 1-to-1 leveraging rate. So our last bond was 50 million back in 2012, and we were able to leverage at least 42 million. That's hard costs. So I'm sure there's quite a few soft costs that would bring it well above that. So I'll talk about a little some of the projects right now. So going back to 2012, I would just highlight a few of the projects, and then we'll talk about 2021. These are some of the bigger projects, some noteworthy ones, a wide range. Easter Lake Park, one of our bigger renovation projects, putting in $23 million into that lake and restoring it, and restoring Yater Creek water and the watershed coming into Easter Lake. Lots of partners involved, and that's now become a regional destination. We went from having 500,000 visitors a year to 1.3 million last year. So it's made a huge impact in the metro. The Nature Center, we've always needed an environmental education hub in our county. One for years. We were the only metro that did not have, the only metro in Iowa that did not have a nature center. And we were fortunate to get one at Jester Park. And it's a very popular place right now and a great place to do programming. We obviously get people visiting from all communities in Polk County and obviously reaching beyond Polk County. 4 Mile Creek Greenway, that's a project that sort of fell in our lap with a good partnership with the city of Des Moines. It's obviously a huge flood mitigation project, converting all of that. It's a work in process. It's going to take us many years to convert that. But it's a great example of some things we can do with the bond to have a major impact with our natural resources and water. Chachaca Valley Trail. This is a great example of a big trail connection that was made from Bondurant down through Berwick, and then now connecting to the Gailey Wilson Trail. So trail connections will come up in a little bit here, but obviously the cities and stuff have their nice networks of trails, and we like to be the entity that steps in and tries to connect all these communities to each other. Thomas Mitchell Park, this is a smaller project, but significant because water access was one of our priorities. And this shows a nice photo of some limestone stairs. We've done this in a couple of our parks now, trying to get the public into water, appreciating water. And that's a good example of that on Camp Creek. So in terms of did I miss a slide there?
I don't think so.
Okay. In terms of the upcoming bond, this is a nice pie chart showing the variety of percentages and dollar amounts that will be going to the different topics. So water will be 38%, parks 31%, land 15%, and trails 15%. That's how we plan to allocate that $65 million. We we were obviously proud to report that from the 2012 bond, we stayed right on track with these percentages. We know that's important to the public, and we want to be accountable. Join the computer on. Okay, I hope it. Okay. Sorry, now we're getting some feedback.
That's right.
Should we get that?
Accidentally clicked that. Okay. There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Okay. So up and coming projects. These are some of the bigger ones. Obviously, there are lots that we will be evaluating and considering. Sleepy Hollow, I'm sure some of you saw in the news that Polk County Conservation will be managing that. Starting in 2023 will be one of the first years we're managing parts of that. Outdoor recreation is a huge component of our mission statement. And one thing we've strived for quite a while now is to try to get more people outdoors in the winter. Sleepy Hollow is the first place, is a great place to do that. So we're very excited on how we can transform that into a great winter recreation destination in Polk County. Obviously, we'll be continuing with the camping and some of the other amenities that's also already happening there. Trail connections, I already touched upon that, but we will continue in the future to look at connecting the various communities in Polk County. Chachaca, our largest park, that probably doesn't get quite as much exposure due to its pristine nature. It's not the bigger of the playgrounds per se, you know, as Jester Park and Easter Lake, but it's our largest natural area in Polk County. It's around 9,000 acres. We get a lot of school groups that want to learn about nature, a lot of colleges. So we hope to install or construct a station at Chachaca that will encourage educational entities as well as the public to come and learn more about environmental studies and so forth. So we're excited to work with the various schools in Polk County and colleges to bring them here so they can learn. Mountain bike trail, we've had a nice opportunity to partner with the city of Pleasant Hill on a property that is up by Copper Creek. We obviously like to expand various types of outdoor recreation. Mountain biking is very big in the metro, so we've got a perfect spot to build another mountain bike park over there. And water quality and habitat restoration, obviously that's a given, but wherever we can, we hope to, in our own parks and partnering with other agencies, we hope to continue to improve water quality. We did hire a gal through the last bond, not with bond dollars, but on our own, Amanda Brown, and she's a water ecologist. So we're very committed to improving water quality and helping the other communities in Polk County do the same. And Central Iowa Water Trails, obviously that's a big part of this bond as well. 15 million of the 65 will go towards the Water Trails project, 10 of which will be allocated to some of the larger projects in the main bodies, and 5 of it will be more allocated to our properties, I guess, our parks and our waterways for access and various reasons, various things like that. Okay.
And before I take us home with polling takeaways, were there any questions for Cami from the council or?
Council questions for, yeah, Erica.
Andy, sounds like a great project. I did have a question though. When you're looking at allocation of projects, is there any projects in Clive that you're looking at for water restoration or anything else?
Yeah, you know, I think we are definitely open to partnering with all the cities. And I know our directors have reached out, I believe, to Richard. I don't know if he's viewing being somewhere. But we are definitely open to working on solutions, especially related to water quality. So my recommendation is the city staff start to meet with some of ours to see what type of partnerships that we can figure out.
What I would offer, Councilmember Klein, is about 3 or 4 months ago, myself, Doug, Pete, and Richard actually all met with Rich Leopold and Doug Romeg about this topic, because one thing we encourage them to do is there is partnering opportunities with communities outside of Des Moines. And I emphasized to them that I think it would be imperative for Polk County Conservation in this campaign to think about that. And particularly when I look at the flood mitigation projects that were done in Des Moines, we're doing very similar, almost exact same project here in Clive with our flood prone property buyout area. And I know some of the stipulations of the bond requirements, obviously Polk County Conservation has to own the land. And I think there's opportunities for that, particularly as we look at areas that this council has talked about that we're going to potentially look at buying out property, turning them into parks or water quality, water management assets that, could be a Polk County Conservation asset as a part of this. And I think there's going to be those partnership opportunities. And so what I would say is we've had those conversations, at least started them. And I think that if this were to happen, I think we would definitely want to continue to engage on that, because this council is making substantial investments in that area in terms of buying out the property. And I think along our green belt there's definitely some partnership opportunities. Then again, I get the requirements of the bonds, and I know in that 4 Mile case, Polk County Conservation is taking over the land from the city of Des Moines.
Right.
And I know that would have to be a similar caveat here, but I think there's opportunities for that.
Great.
There's going to be some substantial green space potentially that could be created in that area that we definitely would be interested in partnerships. Because I think the reality for us is that's how some of that's going to get done, is there's going to need to be partnership opportunities beyond the city of Clive, just in terms of the scale. So that could be a nice urban, flood mitigation, park, stormwater management project that could be a part of this in the future, I feel.
We would
answer your question, Councilmember.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and on that note, something that we are excited about is if the bond does pass, the federal government is pushing a lot of money out the door for infrastructure and other things right now. So the ability to get this money matched at state and federal level, and then also philanthropy, out at Easter Lake, the prior CEO of Hy-Vee, the prior CEO of Casey's really coalesced around that project and raised quite a bit of private dollars in addition to the public dollars. So there's tons of opportunity for partnership, and should the bond pass, I think that, we would definitely be looking at the 5 Waters plan and the different flood mitigation things that you all have in mind for sure.
I would add to that, and Matt makes great points. If you're interested in flood mitigation, water access, water quality improvement, you come to the right place.
Right.
We're focusing,
Amen. Yeah.
we're focusing a lot on
We
that.
encourage.
I'm interested in some of the past projects, what you've implemented for water quality solutions.
Yeah, boy, it varies so much. We've done a lot of lake restoration. We've done a lot of shoreline, stream bank remediation. We've done a lot of wetland development, rainscaping practices. The list goes on. I don't know.
Bioswale.
Bioswales,
Yeah.
we've got those in numerous places in our parks.
And then testing too. I wouldn't want to,
Yeah, I don't want to forget
you're the
about that.
expert. Yeah, but yeah, testing is a big one, I think.
Yeah, the water quality monitoring has been big. We saw a need to step in a leadership role in terms of water quality testing and monitoring in this area. And so that was one of the reasons we brought on a water ecologist. So now they have 6 years of data under their belt. That's very strong data. And we are hoping to expand that program. We're currently testing 70 sites in Polk County. So we want to work with all the agencies and entities that are around to look at that data and figure out, what types of things need to be improved, what things can be done to make the water better. So
Yeah.
Great. Well, we'll look
just a few of
forward.
the examples.
We'll look forward to a lot of discussions and I think meetings
Absolutely.
in the future. Ted, do you have anything? I want to just pass you here. Okay. Anything else, council, while we're at this point?
I just comment that I think the projects that you showed from the bond that happened 10 years ago really shows good stewardship. And Councilmember Edwards shared with us a piece that Neil Hamilton had in the Des Moines Register that pointed out that we've been lacking state investment in some of these amenities. And so we've needed to look to local governments to help shore up what it is that citizens want. So I'm just really pleased with what's happened and excited about what can come from this bond issue. So thank you.
Sure. And the polling takeaways can be summarized as saying that there is not unanimous, of course, but very, 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 substantial majority, 75%. And the slides actually go up from there. We'll be respectful of time, but the broad public support through the polling that we did indicates, that there's a good chance of this passing, but we do need 60%, not just 50%. We need 60% for this one. And so we are really, wanting and seeking folks to be engaged and to vote yes and all of this. So, but yes. And then shout out to Councilwoman Judkins for your leadership on water over many years and different water issues in the state. So happy to have some interested folks and some allies on the panel tonight. So I don't know that we need to go through all the polling stuff.
Okay.
We're running a little long, but yeah. That slide deck is available for Mr. DeCook to circulate, and everybody can take a look at that if they want. And then Cammie and I are available for questions. He has our email addresses as well. So,
Super. Thank you both. Council, any final questions or comments?
No, I don't.
Good. Ted, anything? Okay, seeing none, thank you both.
Thank you.
Best of luck to you, and we look forward to collaborating going forward. So appreciate your time and your efforts. Okay, then we're going to move on to consent items. Note to the council that items E and G will be removed and reintroduced at a future council meeting.
Move consent with the deletion of E and G.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote?
I seem to be locked up, but I was able to hit yes, but I can't do confirm. Okay.
That passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to action items now. The first one is to approve the pay rate for Elizabeth Hanson, Director of Administrative Services, in the amount of $122,000 per year, effective December 3rd, 2021. And Matt, lead us in this one.
Thank you, Your Honor. Earlier this year, Joyce Cordham, our current Director of Administrative Services, indicated her desire to retire here at the end of the year in early January. And with that, we started a recruitment process this summer for our next Director of Administrative Services. Happy to report through this recruitment effort, we were able to identify a great candidate for the position in Elizabeth Hanson, who is here with her family here tonight. Went through an extensive interview process that a number of the folks, the mayor, Councilmember Edwards and Councilmember Weaver were involved with, as well as the management team. And every time we do a director recruitment, I like to bring in an outside perspective, and Jennifer Cease from the city of Ankeny was also involved in the interview panels. And through all that, we identified Elizabeth as our top candidate, and she is before you tonight for consideration and approval of the wage rate and my recommendation to be our next Director of Administrative Services. What I'd like to point out too is with the start date, which I think is really key for a finance, the overseeing the finances of the organization, we're going to have almost about a month of overlap. Of course, you'll have holidays in there with the transferring of the books and everything that goes with those finance positions. I think we're very fortunate to be able to have that overlap, as there's a lot to download from Joyce's brain and a lot of notes in terms of the financial operations of the city. And then we'll also be in the middle of the budget process starting right there in January. So that is, it's very nice to be able to have that overlap. So I appreciate the council's flexibility on us doing that with director positions and having a little bit of that overlap. But happy to present Elizabeth. She is here tonight and will come on up. And if you have any questions for myself or, of course, Your Honor, you were a part of the process as well, or Elizabeth, we'd be happy to entertain that. But I would recommend your approval of the wage rate.
Move approval.
Second.
It's moved by John, seconded by Susan. Is there any discussion, council?
I just say that I haven't given up hope that we'll have more overlap with Joyce. I support this, but I'm still working on Joyce, so a couple extra months. which
Joyce,
I
you're
don't
not getting
think-
off so easily, I think, right? Ted, anything on your end?
No, I just want to welcome Elizabeth. She'll be a great addition to our team.
Very much agree. Well, it's been moved and seconded. Let's have the council please vote. Then we'll ask Elizabeth to come forward. Being that we have to get these formalities out of the way. It passes 5-0. Elizabeth, please come forward. Welcome.
Yes, thank you.
And your family that's here with you. Please introduce the
Okay.
two to everybody.
I will. And again, Elizabeth Hansen. My family with me is Kyle, and then also Adeline. She's 11. And then our son, Ethan's at Iowa State. So he's in college right now. So he couldn't make it tonight. So I'm excited and very thrilled with this opportunity. I just want to thank you. As you probably already looked through the packet, I have the credentials to do very well in this position. And I look forward to working with Joyce during the transition period, and hopefully I can still call her once in a while after that too. But and I also look forward to working with not only the council and staff, but just a fantastic organization, and I'm really thrilled to be a part of it. So thank you.
We're thrilled to have you on the team. Welcome again.
Thank you.
Council, any questions or commentary for Elizabeth while we have her?
Welcome. You've come with great experience. We're lucky.
Thank you. I feel the same way.
Okay, Elizabeth, thank
Thank
you very
you.
much. Looking forward to the future. Okay, Matt, thank you for your efforts there. We'll move on to action item number 2, which is regarding 2021C general obligation urban renewal bonds. And Joyce?
Yes. Okay. The next step in our process will be setting the date for the sale, October 28th, and then approval for the authorizing the use of the preliminary official statement as well that you received in your packet. This week we had the rating call with Moody's. It went very well. I could say with high
99.9%.
Yes.
We're keeping our
confidence level that it just reaffirmed our bond rating, the AAA bond rating. So that was really good. We'll get our official results next week on the 21st. So, and then just in a little conversation after that with PFM, it sounds like the bond market is still holding good. She feels really positive about the fact that we will be holding our sale before the Federal Reserve meets again. So feels like the rates should be stable. And she shared, maybe you can help me, I've already forgotten, but they did a sale for Waukee last week or the week before. And it was for a longer term. And
20-year
then
debt at like 1.65.
I thought it was 1.8,
Or
but
might have
anyway,
been 1.8. It was
and they're not a AAA bond rating. So that was a very positive.
good time.
So that's all I have. If you have questions of me, happy to answer them.
Questions for Joyce, council?
Move the resolution.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Eric. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote?
Bam. There's miracles up here.
That passes 5-0. Thank you, Joyce. Okay, action item number 3 is a resolution approving change order number 6, core structural services, public safety center project in the amount of $60,630.45. Matt.
Thank you, Your Honor. So what's before you tonight is a change order we've been working on for a little while here. As I outlined in the packet, the Chin Evangelical Church has been very gracious to us, and our construction manager, Michael Steen, who's here on the project, can attest to that. They've been very, very flexible with us and utilizing their parking lot, changing their access a number of times. And as a part of that, we did do some pretty good wear and tear to their parking area. And so one thing that I asked our owner's rep, Angie and Michael, to do is to get an estimate put together for what we could do for the church to essentially repave, do an asphalt overlay over that main area of the parking lot. This would be kind of the north 2/3 of the lot that we used extensively. And so I asked them to put that change order together under the contractor that was doing our paving work, for the core structural as the primary for the paving work on the site. And so they're working with an asphalt company to bring this change order forward. And I would highly encourage your consideration of this. They've done a lot for us. And I think this is one of the things that we can definitely do to say thank you for them. So this also in the same time, what we're discussing with them, knowing that there's going to be from time to time, not just obviously the ribbon cutting or big events like that, that we're going to have maybe more sizable events at the facility, trainings with multiple agencies, where we made sure to really try to right size the parking as much as we could in the facility to kind of limit impervious pavement. And so we're also working with the church on, and they're amenable to this, is some kind of a parking sharing agreement for those kind of specific events. Of course, we would coordinate with them and not have any conflicts with their operation. But with having that parking asset nearby, that's kind of a part of this investment. It's a partnership. So excited to bring this forward and do what we can for the church here, because they've done a lot for us. So encourage your approval, Your Honor.
Matt, thank you. And I would, that's stated very well. And I would suggest that your description of their collaboration and support of us is probably an understatement. And they have done an exceedingly outstanding job for us in supporting what we're doing there. So glad that you're bringing this forward. I think it makes a lot of sense, and look forward to continuing to work with them. Others, Mike, do you have anything?
I just say that, we've been, a couple of us, John and I and the mayor, but on the facilities committee, have been going up there for some time now, from the beginning of this, and discussing this from the beginning of watching this all kind of unfold of the use of that property and their cooperation and willingness. And so it's the right thing to do, as literally a neighbor, but as a good neighbor as well. But so I'm very supportive.
Indeed. Other comments, council?
Move the resolution.
It's moved by John, seconded by Eric. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? That passes 5-0. Matt, thanks for your efforts there. And special thanks to our friends at Chin Church. I hope we have the appropriate opportunities to in person thank them as we move forward.
I wanted to ask, not to put you on the spot, Michael, do we know when that's scheduled to?
End of October, so
End of
it'll
October.
start last week of October.
So one part of our intent of doing this now too is to have it done before the ribbon cutting of the facility as well.
It's an excellent plan.
And Your Honor, we're also working on a way to recognize the church with a small sort of token of our appreciation at the actual ribbon cutting or the community
Good.
night as well.
Good, excellent. Thank you, Pete.
Mhm.
Thanks, everybody, for that. Okay, we'll move to discussion now. The first item is City of Clive Facilities Security Analysis Report, SVPA Architects and DCI Group. Matt.
Thank you, Your Honor. So tonight, circling back on some initial information that we shared with you during strategic planning on some work that was done in terms of evaluating security and remodeling for both this facility and then our parks and public works facilities. We contracted a number of months ago with a similar design team that we were working on with the public safety project with SVPA, DCI, and Sidekick Development on doing this evaluation and kind of taking a preliminary analysis that we had done by Iowa Homeland Security on our facilities in terms of security enhancements and really taking it to the next level and starting to put some conceptual ideas and most importantly, costs together for what it would take to do this. This has been an ongoing discussion with the facility committee, kind of going back and forth on some ideas. And so what I wanted to do tonight is make sure that you'd gotten some preliminary information back in August that was really just some floor plans and the cost estimates. We wanted to kind of give you the full report, finalize that out, And then, which I'm going to have SVPA kind of go through just high level, some of the things that were discovered in that analysis. And then in the agenda packet, I posed kind of a number of discussion questions that we want to check in on, get your feedback on, have some dialogue on. I know there wasn't a desire, obviously back in August with the price tag associated with this building to necessarily any commitment or move forward at this time. What I'm offering to you tonight as you kind of hear this analysis and then the discussion questions is there an ability for us to maybe move at least the design process further down the field and to put us in a position to maybe reevaluate where costs are at a year from now, and then decide whether or not there's a right point to move forward with any of these improvements. So with that, I will turn it over to Pierce. Pierce has also been the architect on the public safety building as well. So very familiar with the city and our operations, but have him provide a high level overview. And we have Ann also from SVPA, and then Michael, who you know, and then Brandon as well from DCI Group here. And then Angie is on the Zoom too, if there's any questions on any specific items of the report. So with that, Pierce, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Matt. That was a very good synopsis. So we'll talk a little bit about the findings that we had in the report. There were 3 buildings that we looked at, of course, City Hall and the library, Public Works building down the street, and then the Parks and Rec Maintenance building. These 3 buildings were identified in the Homeland Security study, and we followed on with what it would physically take to interject some of those suggestions in the Homeland Security report. So what we did is we met with all of the departments that occupy the existing buildings, met with them to talk about their current needs, inefficiencies in their floor plans, what they think their growth might be over the next dozen years, and try and identify if we are making physical changes to the building for security issues, are there also efficiencies that we can gain in the floor plan and the operation of the city staff. We looked at 4 main points for each of those 4 or 3 locations. We looked at site security. That includes exterior lighting, cameras, physical barriers to stop someone from trying to both intrude into the building with a vehicle or with a weapon. We looked at floor plan issues relative to separation of public space and private space so that we can kind of create a security perimeter that is monitored with card access readers, cameras, that sort of thing. So we kind of cut down on the friction between an intruder into the property and otherwise. Along with that, we looked at trying to separate toileting facilities so that they're both staff and public toilets, staff and public meeting spaces, all those different things. So once again, kind of emphasizing that security portion. We looked at the the lifespan of the current mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems that we have in the building. All of these buildings have some vintage to them, and so we wanted to see what we think the next 10 or 12 years will take to keep those in good, efficient running operation. And then lastly, we looked at security, giving ourselves a trackable system that monitors door operations so we can trace who's coming and going. And once again, providing that perimeter to stop someone from intruding into the facility. So at all of these locations, we found different issues, and the report summarizes those. I won't take time tonight to go through all of those, but we do think that we've identified projects in all 3 buildings that could be accomplished to improve both efficiency and security. DCI Group has worked with us to provide cost estimation on what they think the number of these different things would cost. And we've presented them in kind of a buffet orientation, if you will, trying to identify costs for individual pieces so we could pick and choose pieces if we want to do some this year, 2 years out, 3 years out. But I will say the cost estimates that are in our report do reflect today's costing. It's hard to know where we'll be in 2 and 3 years given our supply situation right now. So what we see here is snapshot of where we think we are today. With that, I know you've had the report for a couple of weeks. If you'd like to ask some questions or have some thoughts or concerns that I could address, I'd like to.
Council, anything for Pierce? I guess I would, Ted, don't want to bypass you there. Anything on your end?
Not at this time. I haven't had a chance to review the report in detail.
I would just add that these are things that are going to need to be done at some point here in our facilities. You know, one of our top priorities, council priorities, is resilient infrastructure for our city. But to our council's credit, it took us about 15 years to get the right chemistry with the new public safety facility that we're going to cut the ribbon on here next month. And it's going to take us some time to work through this. I think everybody knows and understands what the need is. It's how to do it and when to do it and what's the right mix. And I think there's probably, from my perspective, I'd like to do some more work on some of the design, particularly as it relates to the council chambers and the public spaces and that access. So, Matt, I'm very much with you that we need to continue this work, continue these conversations, get to the right time. Now is not the right time to start buying steel and concrete. We got
Not today.
Got really lucky with our public safety facility. So I think we're doing all the right things. I think we just need to continue. Those are my comments. Anything else, council? Eric?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One, it's a very detailed plan, Pierce. I appreciate the time and effort, obviously, that's gone into this. It's very comprehensive and really appreciate that. $4.5 million is a big ask. It's a lot of money when we're looking at completing a public safety facility that's $15 million. We're still not sure what to do with Diamond. That will be coming up on the horizon here with a renovation with that and some questions there. So just a lot to consider, a lot to chew on, obviously, from this council, but just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I think we're very much aligned there. So, Matt, anything else to add?
Yeah, so just a few kind of discussion points, because the council member Klein's perspective, these are big numbers. And I think one thing I wanted to do tonight is, and kind of laid it out in my questions. And the first question is, and this is, I know something we've discussed in the past, but just want to check in on that. If we feel, particularly this facility, I think it's pretty safe to say Parks and Public Works is going to be our long-term homes for those operations. We feel at least at minimum 10 to 15, at least from a staff perspective, we've been operating under the perspective that at least in the next 10 to 15 years, this is going to be our home for the City Hall Library facility. That want to confirm that, because I would say it would make a ton of sense to do design work for this facility if that isn't the case, right? If the council's supportive of at least moving forward with some design work, even if the construction may be a few years out into the future, at least we have plans ready to go when the timing is right. But if this isn't our long-term facility, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do that. At least staff has felt that 10 to 15 year window is pretty safe for this building. So I want to confirm that. And before then kind of moving on to the next two pieces. But before we get into that, I wanted to kind of get council's reaction to that. We've talked about it here and there. I know there's been some thoughts about redevelopment. Obviously we have parcels across the street. The likelihood that may happen in the next 10 to 15 years with concurrent construction prices, probably not likely. But again, I want to make sure we at least stop for a minute, have that discussion and get your feedback on that.
Council, reaction?
I'll start. Yeah, I think we've found a home here in this facility right here, both for City Hall and library right here. You know, we've had some other course of action that didn't work out with the town center and the bonding on the library in 2008. And I think the citizens look at this and really have as a solid facility right here. I think it fits our needs now, and I think it fits our needs moving forward. And that's really, as we look as a growth and moving forward, what we have to assess right there. So with build out looming on us, I still think this facility meets all the challenges right there. So I'm comfortable with staying here.
Yeah,
Me too.
I'm gonna say the same thing. You know, I think we've learned lessons as we've gone on in an effort to be good stewards and make good decisions. And, you know, I think the library situation, we learned a lot from that. And, you know, look at the library we have today. It's better than it ever was. And it's still here. So if you talk about a 15-year horizon, I'm all in. Susan?
I definitely think this is the location to be with what we're looking to do with Greenbelt Landing. I feel like this is even more of our center of the community. So I feel really comfortable with that. One of the thoughts that I had as I was looking through the report was just kind of wondering if any thought was given to working any differently based on what we've learned from COVID-19. But I think we're still learning about that. So I think that's a good reason to wait a little bit to finalize space planning and usage. But did that factor in at all?
We didn't look at that, and there's a little bit of reason for that. One of the things that Matt and the departments that we talked about was their interface with the public, and there being a physical place for them to do that that was safe for both sides. And that's hard to do when you're working remotely. I mean, yes, you can Zoom somebody and reserve a park shelter, I suppose, but we could do that anytime. But sometimes you want to go talk to the person you're giving your water bill to and that sort of thing. So we didn't study that part of it too much.
Okay.
We did have some intentionality though, to that, Councilmember Judkins, in terms of the restrooms. So one of the challenges that we have in this facility is the kind of the shared public staff restrooms. And during COVID, we kind of shut those down to the public, even when the facility was open to the public. And we were kind of limited in our options there. And we kind of balanced that safety for staff and the public and how we were going to do that. And so I think some of the elements of, you know, looking at, you know, that small unisex restroom in the lobby on the lower level, at least have that public restroom. So not every time you have to go back into the staff space to go to a restroom. And we pretty much have the same scenario with the library today. So there was some elements to that. We didn't get into the details, this level of detail with the mechanical of what we may do, you know, in relations to UV. We did add that element to the public safety facility. Kind of, that was actually a change order or an addendum that we did and got really good pricing on it. It was something we added, and I would expect we would have a similar, if we got to a higher level of design, we would definitely have some consideration of what could we do in the air handling system to even maximize our air filtration. So we haven't necessarily itemized it, but that's definitely something that we've discussed.
That all makes sense to me. I just think it's another good reason to just give a little time.
Mike?
It is somewhat the same as we talk about roads and traffic and all that. It's when is this project going to be started? And are we going to plan it too soon and then come back and find out we're planning again because it's been 5 years or 3 years, or, you know, and now we're hiring someone to draw this up again and plan it with some of the new things that are out there, new ideas. You know, we're guilty in my day job of doing that too. You know, you start planning for something and then you redesign it and engineering it again because it wasn't for 3 years until you were going to do it. So I guess I'd question on when we're going to break ground and do some of these items, maybe do them in pieces. But if we're going to design them, let's do them.
That's a reasonable point.
You know, sit and wait.
Yeah, that's very compelling. Ted, anything to add?
Not a lot. I mean, I agree with what everyone's saying. You know, we've looked at both the library and City Hall 6 ways from Sunday, and have never come up with a better solution than where we're at now. So I certainly don't have any appetite for trying to find a different location. And I think we have higher priorities, as Eric was saying. So, and to Mike's point, you know, I'd want to get this going sooner than later, personally. We've been talking about this for a long time as well, so.
Yeah, we have a guy sitting in the audience who could confirm that as well.
It's been killing me not to say hi to him.
I know. We've got to recognize our former city manager, Dennis Henderson, who's here tonight. Denny, great to see you as always. Hope all is well. Matt, does this give you some guidance?
Yeah, so here's something that I would propose then, is going the construction drawing level is a much more massive investment. right? You're locking it in. You know, maybe what I would suggest is there's an interim, there's a step in between where we're at today in construction drawings, and that's design development. There is expense to that. It's less expense than what's noted in the report. That's full design, right? Construction drawings, getting everything ready to go to bid. If it would be, if the council would be interested in this, because I think, as I know was the way some of you reacted to what we had, there's some ideas that you all have as well to iterate a little bit on even the design concepts that we're showing. And I think staff is interested in doing a little bit more iteration. We wanted to get a concept out there to kind of get us idea of the probable cost. I think there's still more work to be done. So if the council is comfortable with this, perhaps maybe in this kind of next half a year situation, we're working on the design development portion of this, not going to the construction drawing level. We come back with a scope of services that only takes us that far, just through the design development phase. So it is, to Councilmember McCoy's point, we're not over investing in something that it may be 3 years before we start the first phase, or 4 years, and we're not engineering something or putting plans together that have to be changed. Because once you do the construction drawings, now you're making the investment and the time for architects to really put that together. It would give us a finer point on cost opinions. We can start to get a little bit more detailed on that. So it's kind of an interim, it's kind of an in-between step. If that's something that the council would be interested in, we could work up a scope of what that looks like and bring that back to you all for consideration. For the City Hall facility, City Hall library facility, what I would offer is on the other two facilities, there is obviously much less to do. And with our new system in the public safety facility, with how we're doing security and card access, it would be nice to potentially move those two much smaller projects forward. We're looking at, potentially using a lot of in-house labor for those, kind of in the winter months, for both our parks and public works staff to do some of that. That would get us then to the same maybe security posture in terms of security system access control that we're going to have at the new public safety building. So it'd be nice maybe to move those projects along. And again, not this winter, but looking at next year, and then continue to lease the design development for this building. So that's what I would offer, at least for consideration.
John, you had a point.
I was just going to follow up on Councilmember Klein's suggestion that maybe as you're doing this and you come back to us, maybe the next meeting or the one after, is you look at, let's say it's going to be 3 or 4 million, and look at what we've got coming down so we can see where it's going to fall into our debt profile.
It will be, as we'll talk about at the CA, I'm not going to totally give it away for Doug when he does his presentation with the rest of the directors of the first week in November. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be challenging in terms of depending on the funding sources that we potentially could utilize for it. Of course, whenever you're doing a facility, there's certain thresholds that could, trigger votes or not, and depending on how you do it. And so that, and then the recent news that I'll share, talk more about at the end of during my report related to local option sales tax, gives us some further limitations that we weren't expecting. Were kind of a surprise. So there would have been maybe some potentials. And I think I would also offer, I think it was Councilmember Klein who mentioned this, that we also have the Diamond Public Safety question out there. And depending on what happens with that, I know that's a very high priority for the council as well. Whether we keep that facility or eliminate, demoing it, but replacing it with something, whatever, there's a lot of options on the table there. I guess I would want you to all have your direction or know what you're going to do there before you maybe decide the bigger picture here, would be my recommendation to you.
And I guess just following up on Councilmember McCoy's concept, once you go into design development, that's a fixed cost that you're going to spend.
Right.
And when we've got all these other things that we've got to consider, right, I guess I'd like to see some kind of timeline with, when that debt would come on, and, just plug in whatever a reasonable number is for Diamond, X million dollars, and look at that and see how that would work through. And if what we're talking about doing here is going to be pushed out several years, I don't think we need to start design development until, X months or X years.
That's fair. No, I think that's yeah, that's definitely something we can put some thought to and lay out for you.
Matt, what would a forecasted budget be for the design and development for these, and where would the funding source come from?
So I included off of the cost estimates, the full design cost, which was about 10% of the overall construction. So it was a little under, it was about 3 million or 300,000. That was for full construction drawing development. It would be less than that. I don't know how much less. That's something we'd have to get back. But the funding sources, we do have some previous lost funds that have already been received that we do have available to us that you can use for facilities. That is an option, was something that we were at least going to propose to you in the CIP for a way to move at least the design portion forward. In terms of construction for the other two facilities for Parks and Public Works, it would be a combination of funds. Of course, that facility, road use and the utilities supports that department. We would be looking at a combination of funds to support the construction and the design for that facility. And Parks maintenance is relatively minor. We would actually even maybe look at our capital equipment because a lot of it's equipment, fencing, some more minor security improvements, quite a bit less dollar number for there that we would use existing CEP funds there. So I've got some, what I'll say is I got more solid funding sources for the other two. The City Hall Library one is still obviously a big question mark.
And I wouldn't have any problem with doing design development on those two pieces. I
Right.
We could move those along. It's just
Those
this
are
piece
those are
that's-
achievable in the next 12 to 16 months, I would say. Yeah.
But then I think that's a good start to Mike's point.
Right, do it in pieces. Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else?
That gives me the direction I need.
Pierce, thank you.
You're good. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to discussion item number 2, which is swimming pool ordinance review discussion.
This is why
We-
Mr. Henderson is here.
We've all been waiting for
I hope he's
this,
not here for that.
even more so than the Halloween.
He lives in
proclamation.
Urbandale now.
I know, but he's still interested in the code for the swimming pool.
Just a little bit of history with this one, Denny.
Brian, nice to see you.
PowerPoint up. Do I have to go? Go here?
I can bring it up too, Pete, if you need to.
Already got there, Ryan? Did you have it on the other flash drive?
I can share it on mine.
Okay, that'll take
You
care of it.
you just tell me what you need.
Just a PowerPoint for this one.
Yep. Yep.
Perfect.
I'll make it big as much as I can. Yeah.
You'll just follow along.
Yep, you just tell me.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, Council, thank you for your time tonight. I want to bring this before you, engage you in a little bit of a discussion on the swimming pool ordinance that we currently have on the books. There's been some communities around, I believe Waukee was the last one that sent some information to the community development directors requesting pool barrier requirements in our jurisdiction. We had already been working on the swimming pool ordinance rewrite before that had happened, but there were some residents in Waukee that understand that the international code body is less stringent than a lot of the communities around here with regards to the barrier requirements around a swimming pool. So the fence requirements, what we're talking about here. In addition to that, we've got swimming pool permits that are up. You know, in 2020, we did 28, 2021, we've done 23 permits so far on swimming pools. The pandemic really spiked those up. I believe there's a lot of people just staying home and want to enjoy their yards, I guess, and swimming. So the current ordinance has been on the books since 2013. It is a little bit dated, but it's been effective. We've got, we are one of the most strict, and I'll get to some comparisons to other cities. We are the most strict in the metro when it comes to barrier heights and some other requirements, but it's been effective. It's been a safe community with regards to swimming pools, which is critical. I first want to go back, can you go back just a little bit,
Sorry.
Matt? No problem. I first want to talk to you about where we're at with current swimming pool definition. Definition is critical when we're trying to define, is this body of water or pond or fish bowl or whatever you have in the yard, is it considered a swimming pool for safety requirements? So currently, the definition we have on the books is swimming pool is a structure, chamber, tank, or area constructed of man-made material, whether permanent, storable, private, or public, that is intended for swimming, bathing, or wading. For the purposes of this definition, the following shall not be considered swimming pools. So one of the components is landscape features such as fountains, fish ponds, and garden ponds, provided that the water surface area is less than 50 square feet. We also have in there ponds, lakes, and detention retention facilities shall not be considered a swimming pool. Storable swimming pools with a design water depth of 12 inches or less, which are drained and filled daily, are not considered swimming pool as we apply barrier requirements. Okay, Matt. So the three pictures here, you could go to different jurisdictions and you get a different answer if these are swimming pools or not. In Clive, it depends. So the small kiddie pool up in the left there, that if it's filled and drained daily, it is not considered a swimming pool. So folks maybe want to have this in their driveway, fill it up. They're out there watching their kids. At the end of the evening, they dump it out, or before they go inside, they dump it out, flip it over. They can do the same thing the next day. No fence required around that. The bottom picture there, those are some of the products that you can order online, put them together in your backyard. That one doesn't appear to have a circulation system, but in accordance with our definition of swimming pools, that is a swimming pool. So that would require a 6-foot barrier around the backyard with a pool of that size. The fish pond there on the right, koi pond, that if it's over 50 square feet, currently it is a swimming pool. So if somebody comes to us and says, we want to install a koi pond, we're going to say, okay, how large? They say 49 square feet. We say, okay, go ahead and do it. And follow through some of the impervious surface things and some other things. But with that being said, they'd be allowed to install that without a barrier.
Clampets would agree.
So current definition, if it's considered a swimming pool, currently in Clive, barrier height is no less than 72 inches above grade, 6-foot tall fence. Shall be non-climbable. Chain link, wire, and wire mesh are not allowed in Clive. This is where the challenges have come up. And we've had residents, obviously, with permits being busy with swimming pools. We have residents who see what's going on over in Waukee, see what's going on in Urbandale, and they wonder why they can't have the same thing over in Clive. So that's why I'm here in front of you tonight to talk about some of these disparities between communities. So surveyed, you can see the cities that were surveyed there. 100% of the other communities use a depth threshold in the definition for determination of a swimming pool. So Pleasant Hill uses 18 inches. If they've got 18 inches or less water or capability of holding that much water, it is not a swimming pool. All the rest of the communities use 24 inches. So that little blow up kind of pool in the backyard, if that thing would only hold, 24 inches of water, maybe over in Waukee or Urbandale, no barrier would be required. It's not even considered a swimming pool. If considered a swimming pool, 90% of other metro cities, including state code, allow less than a 72-inch tall barrier. Johnston is at 72 inches. Pleasant Hill's at 54 inches. All the other communities are at 48 inches. So we're up here with our fence. The other communities are there. 90% of other metro cities, including state code, allow chain link fencing as allowable barrier. And we'll get into some discussion later when we get into the code adoption part of it about what is non-climbable versus climbable. 40% of other metro cities allow an ASTM F1346 power safety cover in lieu of a traditional style barrier like a fence. And that's where a lot of folks in Clive are wanting, not a lot, we get a handful of people who say, hey, the international code recognizes this pool cover. It's a structural pool cover. When closed, folks can walk across it and not fall into the pool. The international code recognizes that as a safety barrier. The problem is folks leave those open during the nights for the pools to cool down. Then you've got a backyard without a fence. You've got neighbor kids. You've got other things happening. Currently, the Building Code Appeals Board and myself and other staff feel like this is unsafe to allow that to happen in Clive. So we do not currently recognize, nor with the new proposals that came through our Building Code Appeals Board, we're not going to recognize that, even though the international code and a couple other communities recognize it, around the metro. And then this was interesting. 100% of other metro cities do not recognize landscape water features like fountains, fish ponds, and garden ponds as swimming pools. Okay, so when we put this information together, staff took it to the Building Code Appeals Board. We ran it by them. Our goal was to try and get kind of in close resemblance to some of our other communities. The first one was we were going to try to get rid of landscape features from our swimming pool ordinance. We feel like, Clive, we've got the Walnut Creek running through it. We've got the Clive Lake. We've got, other things, detention, retention basins that don't require a barrier around them. So why would we in a backyard? The Building Code Appeals Board asked for some additional safety information, some statistics on some of that. And this is what really changed the conversation. The statistics are open water dangers. Most children in the US drown in open water, a term that includes natural bodies of water, lakes, rivers, oceans, and man-made bodies of water, canals, reservoirs, detention ponds. In 2016, open water drownings made up 43% of fatal childhood drownings, compared to 38% in pools, 9% in bathtubs, and 10% in unspecified. Another interesting comment was more children ages 1 through 4 die from drowning than any other cause of death except birth defects. So when we had those conversations, the Building Code Appeals Board and staff feel like some of these fish ponds, backyard ponds, they are a hazard. They're kind of an attractive nuisance in a neighborhood. We feel like we should create some kind of additional protection, around those types of ponds. So the recommendations coming from the Building Code Appeals Board are the following 3 items. The first one is when we had these discussions about the landscape features, they asked me to go in and find some information regarding, okay, if we got rid of barriers, what would the experts say would be a safe pond edge or environment for kids to be able to actually go look at the fish but not fall in, or if they did fall in, could they get out? So we did that, and we came up with the following proposal, and basically it'd be landscape features such as fountains, fish ponds, and garden ponds provide the water surface area is less than or equal to 100 square feet. We're increasing the size from where we were at, and has a maximum water depth of 12 inches extending a minimum of 30 inches into the water feature. So it's a little safety platform that's inside that water feature. So when kids go up, if it's a koi pond or a fish pond, they look in the side. If they do fall in, it's only 12 inches deep for a 30-inch shelf. The reason we increased it was to allow folks who want to have fish ponds in the wintertime, they need the deeper water for the fish to survive. So we allowed roughly on a, Matt, can you scroll down one? I think I've got a picture. Yeah, so this is an example of a square safety edge type, 10 by 10. You've got a 30-inch platform around the outside. The middle's deep for the fish, but allows somebody to walk up to the edge if they did fall in. Yes, they could fall into the 30-inch, off the 30-inch ledge too. So it's not 100% safe, but it's more safe. And this was one of the safety edges that was recommended by pond experts. The other one, if you want to go down one more slide, yeah, was a beach style edge. So like our retention basins and other detention basins, we try to try to grade those out so they're fairly shallow. So if a child does fall in, hopefully they can stand up and it's only 12 inches or so deep and they can get out of there. Same thing with a beach style entrance. We would allow that style entrance as well, as long as within 30 inches of the edge of that, it was only 12 inches deep. So the Building Code Appeals Board and staff kind of came together on that. Matt, go up 2 more slides.
We go back to your
Yeah.
recommendation slide. Okay.
Please. Yep. So that was the landscape, fish pond, fountains and garden ponds portion that we brought to you tonight. The second component, which is going to be a change, is reducing the barrier height to a 48-inch required barrier. And we would, chain link would be allowed with a max opening of 1 3/4. 2 inches is the most common mesh. So if they're larger than 1 3/4, they'd have to put some slatting through there and attach them at the top and the bottom so they couldn't get their feet or hands, a child couldn't climb that. If they're 1 3/4, the building or the swimming pool and spa code indicates 1 3/4 is too small and it's non-climbable is what they indicate. So we would recommend chain link fences with a max opening of 1 3/4. Yeah, that's basically it. So I wanted to throw this in front of you before we start drafting this up into code. I should probably mention one additional thing to the landscape, the fish ponds and fountains, is in lieu of the safety edge or the beach edge, another option would be a structural pool cover. It's what you see here. And the requirements that we have drafted would be, it would be structural to hold 60 pounds and not have that pond cover sink down into the water more than 12 inches. So there are some net products out there that could go over a fish pond. Typically net is not going to hold 60 pounds in the center. It's going to, sink to the bottom. So those would not qualify. But some of these structural designs that you see in this picture here, they would be allowable as well, in lieu of a 4-foot tall fence, or if we keep it at 6 foot tall. Thoughts, concerns, questions?
Council?
It's a lot to kind of
Susan?
digest there.
I'm thinking about some of the lakes and Walnut Creek and all those things that we have in backyards, including mine. What's the thought about all of those?
Well, right now we've excluded those from being swimming pools. I would hate to think about the costs that would be associated with
Cover.
having, what's that?
Cover on that?
Right.
A bridge.
Some of the costs associated with some of those retention facilities, the Clive Lake, think about putting a fence all the way around that. That's where we were at. We were thinking about getting rid of landscape features because we can't enforce them all, but the backyards, the BCAB members really, that's where kids play. That's what, where kids are creative and figure out things. And those are the places where I think those accidents are going to happen. They're attractive nuisances.
John.
Okay, help me understand the fencing and where it would go. If they've already got a fence in the backyard and it's at the proper height, it's going to be okay.
Yep.
But if they don't have a fence, then they need a fence in the backyard. And so this would be a drastic change to permit chain link fence, right?
Yes. It is a change. But here's what we ran into. The international code and 90% of the other communities around here agree that a chain link fence is safe. The international code has done the research on it. What we've run into is, let's say neighbor A wants to put a pool in their backyard. Neighbor B right next door has a 4-foot chain link fence right there. Now neighbor A, according to our current code, has to install another fence inside that on their property that's 6 foot tall. So what we're trying to do is create a situation that's still safe, but yet can encourage better neighborly experiences instead of slamming up a 6 foot fence when somebody has already got a 4 foot fence there. And then the middle area between never gets mowed, or whose responsibility is it? And we deal with a little bit of that on an annual basis, but.
Brian, 2 questions. One is, would current regulations be grandfathered in with, say, fencing and the other things we considered? Second question is, safety is the number 1 priority. So how do we justify going from a 6 foot fence down to a 4 foot fence?
2 very good questions. The second one, going down to 48 inches. The International Building Code, the way that they put together the code is through research and historical evidence of safety provisions. I could not find a single document that talked about, I don't know, a 6 foot fence was 80% more effective, or some percentage more effective than a 4 foot fence. It just didn't exist. All the experts who talk about barrier protection around swimming pools or ponds, they indicated 2 things. A barrier was in place, and it was tall enough for a 1 through 4 year old to not climb, or if they could climb it, it was enough of a slowdown for them. You know, if a kid's running across the yard, mom or dad's on their phone or calling somebody, the barrier was enough of a slowdown for those kids, for mom or dad to not be distracted and then find out, hey, my kid's trying to climb the fence. You know, I've seen 5-year-olds scale a 6 foot fence, you know? So the change down to a 48 inch fence was based off an international code, but it was also from some of the concerns that we have about neighbors complaining that, you know, my neighbor's now installing a pool. I've got a 4 foot beautiful wrought iron fence there, but now he's going to install this wood fence that's going to look like crap in 5 years because it's needs stained, you know? So there's some of that we were trying to kind of wrestle through as well, but in the end, still encourage the safety.
Got it. Thank you.
And then what was your first question?
Would current standards be grandfathered in?
Okay, that was a good point. So somebody who installed a 6 foot fence, if the new code goes down to 48 inches, if those folks want to relax their fence down to 48 inches, they would be allowed to do that because the minimum code would be 48 inches. They would have to get a permit, obviously, to do it. And then, yeah, those folks who, I mean, we've got a few koi ponds right now that before the swimming pool code existed in 2013, folks put koi ponds in. We have records to show that they were installed before this became a swimming pool. So we've grandfathered them in as well and let them just manage their private property as they would, or as they have.
Got it. Thank you.
Others?
This is just to digest tonight, right?
Yeah, we're not,
Yeah.
it was,
it's a lot. I don't see this need to change. The other question, and this isn't, you know, anything about your presentation, but I hear international code, then I hear other codes, and then it's like, when we get to one code and say the whole city's going to follow international code on everything, whether it be this or that, but sometimes we follow international code and sometimes we follow other codes and this code and that code, but we kind of do it as it fits the neighbor that doesn't want to paint his wrought iron fence. That to me is what, 1 or 2 neighbors.
Yeah.
And again,
it's a beast, Mike. I mean, it's just like the
Right.
fireworks stuff. We all can't agree.
You're right.
Well, I think
You
at the
know?
very least, this is like a project for Mac. I mean, so we should all be.
For Matt?
For Mac.
Oh.
I'm pointing over here at Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, Matt, you could carry this
Matt
too.
Grant.
But let's, you know, it'd be nice to have, you know, the region on the same page at least. And so
But I don't want to do it because the neighbor, I get the arguments and the phone calls you're getting. I can hear them, right? But again, if you got a 4-foot fence and neighbor's putting a pool in, work it out. I mean, that's not our job to sit here and be a referee on a lot line of, if you're going to redo your 4-foot fence and put it into a chain link fence, which, by the way, I know somebody in high school that probably could climb any 4-foot fence and get into a pool at whether 1 3/4 or 2 inch or 1 inch, but right, Mayor? Not that I'm saying it was you, but.
And we don't have to change what we currently have on the books either. You know, we can stay where we're at. We've been safe, knock on wood, we've been safe since 13. We've got one of the most stringent barrier requirements. That's around the neighborhood.
And how many pools roughly going in a year other than COVID?
Not many at all before COVID. I mean, we were averaging 5 to 10, a year.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a ton.
I get it, that want to be around the surrounding, all of us, somewhat similar. That's a good argument of why to change, but the fencing and the 4-foot fence next to my neighbor, I mean, I had a neighbor with pit bulls, put a different fence up there as well. And there was a little talk and negotiation there between how we handled it. So I don't know. We could code everything, right?
Yeah.
It seems like you're moving in the right direction. And I understand with the wisdom of the board that you want to look at this. I don't think you're too far off with the direction that you're going. But to Mike's point, there's a lot to this.
Oh, yeah.
So if the guidance from the council is to continue the study on this and really just try to narrow this down, I would say that it would be yes, that we continue to review it.
Okay.
Well, Mayor, can I say something?
And Ted, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I just disagree with Mike on this.
First time ever.
I know, right? I think we're making it really difficult on homeowners here, and I don't think that's unnecessarily difficult. I think the whole point here is to try to get more aligned with our neighbors. Why would we have the most difficult, stringent regulations when we've got other codes, international codes, or other communities that can show that they're just as safe without the strict requirements that we're putting on these homeowners? Let's get more aligned with our homeowners. And I think that's what you're trying to do here. So I applaud that. And I think that's the right approach. And that's what we should be trying to do. So I just disagree with this idea that, well, we're not going to mediate between the homeowners. Well, the reason why we're having to mediate is because we're forcing them to do something that they don't want to do. So, I guess my one kind of quibble with this is, why are we still including landscape features in this? None of the other metro cities are including it. If we want to regulate landscape features, we should have a separate ordinance for that. I mean, a fountain is not a swimming pool. So why are we calling it a swimming pool? Personally, I
agree
think
with that.
Some homeowner, if you're going to put in a fountain or a fish pond or something like that, then there's got to be some homeowner responsibility there. So I don't know that I even agree with the proposed regulation, but I definitely don't agree with it within this ordinance. I think it needs to be separated.
Ted, I think we actually agree on most of that. I don't want the mass confusion and this or that and only changing it because a homeowner, and whether we're at one code or the other, I don't care. Either way, you're restricting the homeowner. If you totally didn't want to restrict, you wouldn't even have a 4-foot fence or a 3-foot fence of a chain link, but we're going to do that. I'm just saying, let's pick a code and let's go with it, rather than this code, that code, for each item. And I agree with you on the koi pond. I hate saying I agree with you at all, but I think we agree on most of this. I just want a code.
Well, as stated, I think we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, in addition, the last couple of months, we've been working with the BCAB members to come up with what is proposed to you tonight. This is just to get kind of a sense for where we should go as we're starting to put together and write the code for this. It's it's three changes to that. They're decent changes, but they are to create better alignment. They are supported by an international code that has research history behind their name. And then BCAB members and myself have done quite a bit of research into this as well.
Well, I guess that's the wisdom that I'm leaning on here, is your research and the board's wisdom to research this thoroughly and come up with the best recommendations. And
okay,
and our neighbors are part of that. That's just the way we do it. I mean, it's very relevant. So let's continue it and let's carry it forward. And I think come back to the council. I think obviously we're not making decisions tonight, but I think you're headed in the right direction.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Great discussion. Thank you, Ted, for your comments as well. Okay, we're going to go to reports, and Ted, we're going to start with you.
Okay. We've had our first meeting of the ICON, Iowa Confluence of Water Trails board meeting. So it's kind of our inaugural meeting. Dan Houston from Principal was voted as the private sector co-chair, and Rick Tollickson was voted in as the treasurer. We do need a public sector co-chair, and that person has not been identified yet, but we're hoping to have that person in place before the next meeting, which I believe is going to be in December. We passed bylaws, set the operating budget at $1.1 million annually. That'll be paid 70% public, 30% private. And Clive's portion of that is something in the range of like $14,000. So it's not a huge lift for Clive. And then we kind of went over the 5-year pro forma. It's interesting. They're saying they're being very conservative with the numbers, but they're forecasting a profit from year one. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, we'll be meeting. I forgot, every other month. So yeah, so the next meeting I believe will be in December, and we're off and running. So
sounds good. Any questions for Ted? Thank you, Ted. Pete, I skipped over you.
No problems. Thank you, Your Honor. Good news to start. Clive Lions are doing their holiday basket program this year, as they have traditionally. Last year, because of COVID, they moved to a gift card setup, but this year we think we could safely do it. And we'll be promoting that opportunity for the community to come together and support a number of families in Clive through the November and December newsletters and also across other platforms. So happy to get that visit from the Lions. Second, you just had to step out, but Bob Forte and I, along with Officer Kepnich, got a chance to go out and shoot some video footage of Dutch at work and also just being a good dog and hanging out with people, which was a lot of fun. So we look forward to sharing that. Bob had asked whether or not the city could help out with the foundation to really tell a success story between the department, the broader city, and the foundation. We were happy to do that. So we'll continue to work on post on that video. And once we have it finished, we'll be sharing it with all of those organizations. Third, next week on Thursday, we'll have about 100 students from Indian Hills Junior High out in the Greenbelt, in the area roughly from 100th Street over to 86th Street. I had a chance to walk that area today with my colleague Sarah Borzo from Metro Waste Authority. And on a weekly basis, since we kind of hatched this idea, we've been working closely with the school district. And similar to how we really ramped it up with the storytelling last year with the murals and with the kids on a separate side with the kids over at Crestview, we're going to do the same thing this time as well. The nice thing about the project is that it's not just a one hit with the Greenbelt and the cleanup. It will also be an audit of what is it we find out there, or also what we don't find out there, and a chance then to ask the kids, okay, why do you think you find this? Why do you think Clive's Greenbelt, and I can attest to this today, and many, many areas is looking at remarkably healthy and clean? What is Clive doing right that is leading to that kind of good stewardship ethic and giving people a good experience in the Greenbelt? So a lot of learning opportunities. The big challenge for the students that we're putting to them is this ethic of stewardship might be something that resonates with you. how will you get it to resonate with other people as well? How will you inspire them to this standard of stewardship and align it with other things that we care about, like a beautiful natural space, not just for us, but for people who will enjoy the Greenbelt for decades to come. So this has been a really fun project. It's wonderful to work with such excellent organizations that have such strong touch here in Clive. And I'm confident the students are going to do a great job for us, just like they did last year. Next week, we will be interviewing consultant finalists for the University Boulevard Flood Mitigation Plan. This is that key step to advancing forward to if it proves the right path, a BRIC application for the city. This was identified as a strategic priority by the council in August. This is that next step to making sure our assets are in place so that we can go through that very rigorous federal process. Finally, you may have seen, sort of on a lighter note, that there was another mountain lion sighting in Des Moines yesterday. And the Clive Greenbelt Goats Twitter account couldn't pass up an opportunity to go and just, mention that the mountain lion should stay out of the Greenbelt because there aren't delicious goats running around by Walnut Creek. That's all I have tonight.
On that note.
I got my money on the goats.
I got my money on the goats too. They don't back down.
Thank you, Pete.
Your Honor.
Eric.
A couple of things, Mayor. One is the District 1 Committee has not met this month. They're finalizing and our consultants are streamlining their overall plan. So we'll be able to come back with some more details with that. Sent out some updates from CVB or Catch Des Moines. A lot of things going on. We're seeing uptick in activity from the greater Des Moines Metro. So that's always a good sign. More activities for sure. So love to see that increased enthusiasm. It just launched a new marketing campaign called The Best. The Best. So you'll be hearing more about that too. So
Got Greg Edwards written all over it.
it does.
Yeah,
Good
that's
stuff.
Good thing. It's great news, Eric. Thank you. John?
Metro Advisory Council had a very interesting report on the Metro Waste Authority's new MRF, the materials recycling facility that's coming online next month. And it's exciting to see the detail that's going into that and what it will do for recycling in the Metro and beyond. It's a pretty phenomenal facility. There's an educational component, so kids and others can go out there and see exactly what's involved. And I think it's going to be state of the art and able to do much more than what we're able to do currently with recycling. So it's a great, great project. And I don't know if Councilmember McCoy would want to elaborate on that briefly at all.
There's no brief about the MRF, but put on your schedules on the 17th. The 17th is what we're looking at, doing a ribbon cutting and invite to
November
all
17th?
elected officials. Yes, I'm sorry, November 17th. We'll be having our board meeting out there in the Education Center. So right prior to that will be, everybody is welcome to come on the 17th.
What
We'll
time?
get more information. It's probably around 4:30, but we'll get more information out to you.
Great, thank you. John, anything else?
That'll do.
Thank you so much. Susan?
The Bravo board met, and one of the topics was trying to return to the gala this year, first Saturday in February. And they didn't share too much about what the numbers are, but they said they are raising the cost of tickets. So they're looking to turn it into even more of a fundraising event. There was discussion about how to still involve representatives of the cultural entities that we fund. So that's part of the consideration, because it will be an effort to really highlight them. So some changes afoot, stay tuned, but save the date.
Susan? Michael?
One, WRA exec board met. I'm currently the secretary on that. There are several others on the exec board, but the thing of interest was for that exec board, EJ Giovanetti and Jody Smith are co-chairs of the exec board, and probably all of us glad they are. They are tackling the topic yesterday of operational contract is due on the 2023. So when he said, do we continue to sign a contract with the city of Des Moines to operate the WRA, boy, did the radar go up of some of the folks that were in that room. It's just discussed as an option, right? I assume, and everybody assumes it will be signed the same way. But that's for the operational piece. But that's coming up. They were pushing hard as well. Some of the board members have asked for legal counsel to be separated from the WRA and City of Des Moines to negotiate this contract on the operational contract piece. That was quite a discussion, but agreed upon that WRA would spend some money on their own outside legal counsel. There will be a small board or small committee to choose that legal counsel to recommend to the full board. EJ, Jody, Mayor Frank County, Connie Bozen, and myself will sit on that. And so that's the operational. There are 3 parts to this interesting meeting. The executive director being split off from underneath the city manager of the city of Des Moines was discussed as well. And so will that person answer to a board of directors rather than to a city manager, then a public works director, and then so far, you know, down and down and down. It was very clear that the board intentions are to separate that. There was some pushback, and so more to that story. It was made clear that the chief executive officer of the WRA is not the executive director. It is Scott Sanders by 28E. And so that made it even a little bit more eye-opening for folks. But that point was made by Des Moines to that exec board that did not go over so well. I think it opened some eyes. And then third, the governance could be opened again at 2023 when the operational contract is signed. The 28E can then be opened back up. And there is discussion for many reasons of the cities have to be signees of the 28E. So there's a couple cities that are not signees of the 28E, which have given trouble challenges here in the recent past. And so they're looking to open up that governance as well, as it was mentioned, to mirror, and not by me, but to mirror the Metro Waste Authority's governance, which DART did mostly as well a few years ago, but then to bring that governance into the WRA in 2 to 3 years. So more to come. Who knows how the politics will fall on that, but at least the discussions are being had.
Yeah, well, compelling, and well, and the model's a good model, by the way. It's I think it's talked about widely. So great update, Mike. Thank you very much. Madam Council. Matt.
Just a few things tonight, Your Honor. Just a reminder, tomorrow morning is the facility tour for you all at the public safety facility at 7:30. Just similar to the last tour, you can park in the Stuff Etc. parking lot. Some of the new parking lots still being tiered from pouring and some work being done. So we'll start that off at 7:30, and Michael Steen and crew will be, and myself will be taking you around the facility, and lots to, yeah, you'll need your hard hats because there is a lot of active work happening in the facility right now, a lot of ceiling work occurring. So yes, bring your hard hats if you can, and excited to show you that. It's come a lot has changed since you were there last. So and kind of getting ourselves in a position here at the end of this month and early November to have the changeover and have folks start moving in here in about 3 weeks, 3-4 weeks. It's coming fast. So just a reminder for that. I'm just following up on the Polk County lost situation, the changes. I've been sharing that information quite a bit in my weekly updates to you. We'll be talking about that a lot more in the CIP process. That, of course, hampers some efforts with this error that the Department of Revenue had in that distribution in terms of future. I kind of referred to that a little bit in our facility discussion a little bit earlier tonight. There was some thought that, potentially there could have been some resource there for some of these facility projects. That is not likely to be the case now with this correction. I am still asking for more specifics from the Department of Revenue on the audit trail, how this happened, how is it going to be prevented from happening again. Still have not heard a response yet. My next step is to go to the director if I do not hear from the staff on some of that. I know our neighboring communities are asking similar questions. So we're managing it. Staff, we feel very comfortable of how we're managing the shortfall we'll have for this year, where they're doing the catch up on the excess that we received for the last 18 months. We can manage through that. The real hurt for us is just going forward, thinking that we had a different number, and now that number is $1 million less a year. So particularly for on the capital side of things, that's going to have an impact. Also wanted to mention Matthew and team are working on the re-precincting for Dallas County. In terms of our census numbers, we're exceeding on one of our precincts over the 3,500 that's allowed per precinct. So we'll be doing some re-precincting with that. I think it has to fall, if I'm right, Matthew, no later than 60 days after the legislature approves redistricting, which we know still has some time to go. But working on some GIS there to get that done, and kind of think through too, as the community is going to continue to build out. Maybe we'll be able to do it where we don't have to do it again, but we'll see. It might not work out that way. And then lastly, I'll share some information tomorrow too. I sat through a presentation of the Des Moines Water Works Board, or their finance committee, where they're talking about their rate structures, particularly for purchase capacity customers for the next year. I'll share that presentation to you. They're still kind of kicking around whether or not they have a peaking element to that. I attended that committee, and a number of people offered comments, including myself, to say, what we're hearing is things are getting close on regionalization. Now is not the right time to do this and have a regional board discuss what may need to happen in terms of rate structure for surcharging or peaking. We recognize there is a stress on the system and the infrastructure for peaking. I think that's well understood. We just feel that that'd be a better conversation at a regional board level if that's going to come to fruition in the next 12 months. So just wanted to make the council aware. I offered those comments, and I also plan to, they do Zoom for most of their meetings, to listen in on the actual board meeting in a couple weeks to see what they decide to do. So they have heard from a number of their purchase capacity customers with those concerns. But that's all I have, Your Honor, unless there's any questions for me.
There's Matt. Thanks for the update there. Council
I have a little
questions.
question.
Yeah, go ahead. Susan.
Kind of a different topic, but you're mentioning utilities made me want to ask about the news that Mid-American Energy is expecting significantly increased heating costs. What are the likely impacts for us and concerns related to that?
There will be some impacts just in terms of are you talking like kind of specific to our city facilities in terms of the cost?
City.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, there's definitely something that we're looking at in the budget process of, particularly as we have Diamond, will be a vacated facility that will continue to operate. Of course, that's a boiler system, so we're not as much of a gas hog maybe at some other typical facilities. But yeah, it's definitely something we're going to have to look at. And then there'll be obviously an impact to our residents. Interesting enough, it'll be also in an indirect way, we have a franchise fee on those revenues as well. So that will actually have a revenue impact on the other side after this winter in terms of those revenues that are collected because of the 5% franchise fee that goes towards street improvements. So there's an expense and a revenue, kind of an interesting dynamic with that when those things happen.
Other questions? Ted, anything on your end for Matt?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Matt, thanks for the update. Matthew, any other correspondence I need to be aware of?
Nothing further.
Council, anything else for the good of the order? Hearing none, I'm going to adjourn at 7:43.